There's an article in Newsweek, which was Newsweek is to the journalistic world what Mervyn's is to the retailer world. And, of course, today we learned that Mervyn says it will liquidate all stores. And, of course, Newsweek was once a magazine that people read. Today it's, I don't know what it is. I don't know who reads it. I don't buy it. But the only reason I'm mentioning it is because I'm mentioned in it by a guy who I think has the same name as the head of the ACLU, to give you some idea who works for them. And it's an interesting article from the point of view of who he's talking about. It goes like this. This jerk says, one of my favorite parts of hitting the campaign trail is chatting with cab drivers. Take my cabbie this evening out on Long Island, a black man in his mid-40s who arrived in the U.S. from Jamaica in 1990. Steve was something of an enigma. And then he says he listens to radio. Steve flipped from FM radio to AM, where he settled on Michael Savage's Savage Nation. And he said, I listen to this guy Savage all the time. He gives me both sides of the issue. Considering that Savage is an arch-conservative, was talking at that point about how the false conservative Bush had selected the old man McCain as his fall guy, so that B.O. Obama would win the election and allow the power structure to usher in worldwide socialism, I assumed that Steve was something of a conservative too. But it turns out, he said, no, he will vote for Obama. He said, I seen poverty firsthand in Jamaica. The guy who wants to help the little guy is for me. That's my politics. What these CEOs making, $400 million, that's not right. It's not right. So there was Steve, a black Caribbean immigrant who agrees with Michael Savage most of the time, but is drawn to Obama because of his populist message amid the current economic crisis. Like most of us, he doesn't fit in a demographic mold. First of all, Steve, if you're listening to this show, the cab driver from Jamaica, call the show at 1-800-449-8255 out of WOR New York, and I'll give you a free copy of Psychological Nudity. Now, this is a very interesting article for me, and I'll tell you why. I am an immigrant son, as I've told you numerous times. My dad was a lifetime Democrat because he said the Democrats are for the little guy. As a youngster, I paid no attention to politics. I didn't know what the little guy was or the big guy. I said, well, Dad, what do you mean by the little guy? He says, I don't know. He said, they're all a bunch of crooks. But he said, somehow all I know is that when the Democrats are in power, I always do a little better than I did when the Republicans are in power, who are only in power for the rich. Now, for years, this concept was not really operational in America. That's because the Republicans had crafted a good message. That is until George Bush came along, and with his crony capitalism, which they call laissez-faire capitalism, wealth unimaginable by the pharaohs has been accrued by a few in this country, therefore reinstilling the stereotype of the Republican Party being for the rich. While the crooked left, Barney Frank, Savage. Well, I'll finish when I come back.
Michael